Hi, this is Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis. It's May 8th, sometime in the afternoon. It's a nice balmy day outside here in Texas, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about imports. Um, you know, what does an import mean necessarily? How do you grow them? And, where do you get them? And some tips and tricks, I guess. Uh, First of all, what is an import? Obviously, by the very name, it's a plant from another country, and there are a lot of international growers that will ship to the United States, and you don't need a phytosanitary certificate to receive those plants at all, actually, which is nice. So what you need to do is find out which of these vendors, A, come to the United States, and B, ship from the shows that they are visiting. So a lot of the Brazilian growers that I really like, Bella Vista Orchid, and they will often ship at the orchid shows. Now, as most of you are aware, orchid shows aren't happening right now, but previous to COVID, they were happening all the time, and you could get on a list for these vendors, and they would send out the list before they get to the show, and you could order from them, and they would send them to you from the American show. So in that way, you don't need a phytosanitary certificate because the vendor has that certificate as they're coming into the United States, and then once they're here, they can send it out, as they see fit. And it's a great way to get some of these really hard to find species and crosses. As you guys know, I mostly grow Cattleyas and Catasetum types. So those are the ones that I have the most experience importing orchids from. So I'll talk to you a little bit about, what I do with them, the best time of year to bring them in, and survival rates. Survival rates on Cattleyas, I find, is higher than it is for Catasetums. So for Catasetums, you want to bring them in April or May. Those are really the only 2 months that you want to bring them into the United States or even the Northern Hemisphere. Importing into the United States isn't that much different than importing into Europe, right? So May and April seem to be the best time. That's when they are they're going dormant in South America. And when you bring them here, if you get them into the sun or into the photoperiod that we have going on during that time, their dormancy is often shorter, and they'll perk back up and start growing in the summer. And so that they kind of habituate themselves a little quicker during that time period. In fact, Antonio Schmidt down in South America, that's his preferred time. He might not even ship outside that sort of narrow window because the success rate is so much lower if you're shipping Catasetum types in during different months. So that's my recommendation. Even still, expect a 50% mortality rate probably within the first year or two. I thought that I was doing a poor job of keeping my Catasetums alive with a 50% survival rate until I asked Fred Clark. I said, "Hey, what's your survival rate?" And he said it's about 50%. So, if his survival rate bringing these guys in from South America is 50%, I'm pretty comfortable with mine being about the same and saying that I'm not necessarily doing a bad job. That said, I think over the years, one of the main lessons that I've learned is that 50% survival rate is good, and B, they're not acclimated after a year. So you'll lose a bunch that first year, but I found that second year is also still very touch and go for this group. That said, I do have some successes. About half of them are successes, actually. So this is a Catasetum shunkii that I got from Tarzan Orchids, and I'm pretty sure that he imports them and then sells them almost immediately afterwards. But I've gotten several shunkii from him, and this is a nice little one. As you can see, it put out its growth during during wintertime. So this is the only one that's getting water of my plants so far, and it's been getting water for a while. The new root growth from this particular growth is not great. I'm not super excited about it, but it's got enough that it can support this little baby spike, and this will be its first bloom. So I'm kind of excited for that. I got this one from Bella Vista Orchids, or BV Orchids, several years ago, so I consider habituated. This is Catasetum mattigrossoense. I don't know that a whole lot of people in the United States are growing this one, but so I was pretty excited to pick it up. Very small, sort of white and green flowers, very cool looking. And for $7, getting these imported orchids, from BV, they're kind of small, but if you can get some of these unknown species or brand new species or species that aren't really grown in the United States for $7, I'll take the risk of losing about half of them. And so this one bloomed at the end of 2019, and I would consider it, like I said, I would consider it fully habituated. It's growing nicely. I popped off a pseudobulb, and I'm hoping to get a second plant. The pseudobulb I popped off was not necessarily intentional, so we'll see how it does. As far as my Cattleyas are concerned, I have less experience with that. So I've been importing Catasetums for 4 or 5 years, and so I feel pretty comfortable doing that, especially now that I know that sort of that around April is the best time to bring them into North America. I started importing Cattleyas a year or two ago, and I've had great success. I imported some Cattleya walkerianas, some Cattleyas, a few other species as well, from Floralia, also from South America. A little brain fart there. The plants from Floralia were outstanding. I mean, when I opened that box, I was just blown away by the quality. Nice seedlings, unbloomed seedlings, but just really well cared for, really well packed, incredibly healthy. So I was happy with that. I brought them in. I received them in July. So as you know, in North America, July is a hot time of year. It's especially hot in Texas. And Cattleyas, like I've said in many videos, do just fine with 100+ temperatures for months on end. But I was a little hesitant to put these little guys out in July. They're going from winter in their habitat to suddenly 100+ temperatures here in July. So I didn't want to do that. Instead, I potted them up. I threw them under lights that received 12-hour lights per day, and then I put them out in my greenhouse when I built that this winter, and that they've done really well. So as soon as I got them in July, they were starting. Some of them most of them had little nubs, and they were starting to grow, which is the perfect time to receive them, in my opinion. And I've just had great success. So this is a little Walkeriana. I've had this one for a year. This is a Walkeriana. This is a Nobilior. This is an Alba Nobilior, and you can see the roots are coming out. It's super happy. It's got a little new growth popping out right there. And yeah, so like I said, it got about 6 months of 12-hour daylight where it was just acclimating and getting its root system. So that was really what I wanted. I wanted a nice root system before I kicked them out into the greenhouse, before I kicked them out into the summer heat here. This is a Walkeriana rubra, and this one is similarly nice. You can see it's got a new growth here, and then it's got a few other new growths. It's active root system. And it, like I said, this is from Floralia as well. Notice the difference in the color between the two. This is the rubra. See the new growth on the rubra here. You can see plenty of pigment. The new growth on the alba here has no pigment. It's just green. So again, that helps you determine what type of flower is going to come out. Also the root tips, you can see, are on the alba are just green. There's nothing else, no pigment. And the root tips here on the rubra walkeriana. I don't know if that's too close, if that's fuzzy or what, but hopefully you can see that there's quite a bit of color in that root tip there. My other one that I got this, I can't remember if it was at the beginning of 2020 or at the very end of 2019. In any case, my friend Luis Hamilton Lima, he has his own Walkeriana breeding program, and he crossed Teresa Helena by Raphael, and he did some, I think he did some selfings of those. And he has bloomed some of these first bloom seedlings out, and they're just outstanding. You know, perfect shape, really perfect color saturation. I'm excited to see these. And these guys are doing nicely. You can see the pseudobulbs are nice and fat. They are producing new growths. I don't know that you can really see down in there. So you'll have to trust me that there's new growths. And I got about 5 or 6 of them from him. And they're just cranking. They are putting their new growths out here in the springtime. So I don't know if I can't remember. He may have actually habituated them for a little while in Florida. So he spends some time in Brazil, and he spends some time in Florida. But the fact that they're all starting to grow here in spring makes me wonder if he did hold on to them for a year. So, you know, that's if that's the case, it's an import, but it's kind of a cheating import. And some of these growers will do that. And when I say it's cheating, it's an import, but the vendor has held on to it for a little while so that they get used to the northern hemisphere. And Francisco Miranda will do that. He'll bring in orchids from South America, from Brazil. He's got a lot of great contacts down there. He's from there, and he'll bring in plants, small plants, and then he'll hold on to them for a while and sell them. And that's actually another great way to get imports, is if you know some of these vendors are bringing them in and then holding on to them for a year. It gives you a little head start if you're a little hesitant. And like I said, Francisco Miranda is really good with that. Now, I've shown you a bunch of success stories, and I want to show you, you know, as always, I try to not just focus on the good things and sort of hide the bad things. I want to show you that I screw up sometimes too, or sometimes I just have plants that die. That's a frustrating thing with imports, is you can do everything right, and sometimes they'll still die. And this is not quite the case, but boy, is it close. So this is Cattleya amethystoglossa. This is a rubra amethystoglossa that I had imported. I was really excited to get this, and I'm kind of sad that I am pretty much giving up on it. It popped out a little, so it dropped its leaves. It's got the newest 2 bulbs are brown and dying. So I had kind of lost hope, and then it popped out this little growth here, but this little growth looks like it's dying. So I guess it just didn't have the juice to carry on. You know, I'll throw it out when these bulbs, which are pretty much shriveled already, die, but I would say there's a 90% chance this will die, and I don't know why. This was also from Floralia. I got a Ludemaniana from Floralia that's doing great. Walkerianas, Nobiliores, it's doing great. This amethystoglossa, I don't know. You know, repotting by foliates is tricky on its own, especially when they're not actively putting out new roots. And this one was not actively putting out new roots, so that could have something to do with it. Bringing it in from Brazil could also have something to do with it. And in any case, I don't think it's going to survive. So, you know, as I've mentioned a bunch of vendors here. If you have questions, ask me in the comments. You know, if you like this, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.